3, 2, 1, bro.
What's up, everybody? My name is Mike Murphy, and it's time to talk about the games that we own, damn it. No one ever does that in the board gaming hobby. No one ever talks about what's on their shelf. So we're really busting up all the trends. So this is what's on the shelf, where we take a look at all these various things on the shelf that are behind me here and talk about just one section. We're not going to go through the whole thing. That's too much. So I'm going to be talking about this section that's kind of hidden behind me here. Little print preview right there. Today, and we have some good stuff over here. Some new, some old. It's a really good mix. So let's get right into it, folks. Right here, we got Planet. Planet is a blue-orange game. I'm just gonna bust this thing out here because this is crazy. This is I just call it a puzzle game. It's a weird 3D puzzle game where everyone is going to be given a planet. Let's say this little, I don't know, 12-sided, however many there are sides. It's a D12, I think. Anyway, you have all these different sides, and then you're going to be basically vying for these different tiles to put on, bam, that go magnetically onto your planet. And you can put these out in whichever way you like, but it's advantageous to put sometimes like a bunch of green together, or build a big desert scape. Imagine I didn't put that there. And you want to do this because you can get these cards with animals on it that are going to want you to have the largest area of water, or the most separate areas of ice and stuff. So you are building this puzzle throughout the game in 3D, trying to keep straight what's kind of going to be advantageous for cards that are coming up in the future that you can kind of see, like, oh, 5 cards from now, there's going to be this one thing, so do I try to build for this? But also the cards that I'm trying to get right now are counter to that. And then you also have a preferred land type, so you want a bunch of triangles like these. Each have 6 triangles to them. This would be 2 triangles of ice, for example. You want to have a whole ton of ice on your planet and stuff. So there's all these like little different things that pull you in different directions, which is super interesting because the puzzle itself being in this 3D space and like, okay, well, this doesn't, okay, so wait, no, if I go over here, then the dirt's where I need it to be. It's a surprising challenge that I really actually quite enjoy. It's a game that's not complicated, but the puzzle itself is just super puzzly. You know what I mean? And it's just a really fun, interesting game. Like, I just saw that and I was like, what is going on? So I always appreciate Blue Orange Games for just doing interesting things like that. So that is Planet. Ultimately a kind of a small, simple, puzzly type game that racks your brain a little bit, just because you're trying to think from many different angles at once. Very cool game, Planet. This next one is Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace is a game where you are, it's a World's Fair game, but it ends with the World's Fair. So the whole game takes place in the couple years leading up to the first World's Fair. So in this game, it's a dice worker placement game, but you never roll your dice. You choose the value of your dice. There's no randomization. You can make your dice as powerful as you want. The only catch, you gotta pay for it. Everything comes down to money in this game. And so there's these 8 different spaces you can go to, these 8 different areas. And you basically, leading into the first World's Fair, you want your country to have the most buzz about them. You want to get the word out that you're going to have the coolest prototypes of different inventions. You want to have the biggest, most wealthy, awesome friends around you. You want everyone in the paper talking about you. It's really like this is if the Prodigals Club didn't want you to tank your reputation. This just wants you to indulge in it. So it's all about setting up for that first World's Fair and having your country going in, being the most kind of talked about and famous and stuff. So there's a lot of interesting things with this. The whole thing of money management. If you want powerful dice to get kind of priority when you go to certain spaces, because there might be 4 spaces to select to put a die down on an action, but there's only 2 action spaces. So if all 4 dice go there, 2 of them are not going to get to do the action. So you need to have powerful dice there. Also, if you place powerful dice, you might get these bonus actions, but you have to pay money. You want really, really good characters around you. You can have fictional and real. I can have the Queen and Sherlock Holmes, but they cost money to keep them in your employ. You're literally paying to play here. And so it's just super interesting of like, how do I do as much as I can and not go bankrupt and have to take on loans and stuff, which will lose you points for sure. If you don't pay back a loan, you lose like between 8 and 10 points. But if you do pay back a loan, you lose 5 points. So it's not good, but you might need to do it because the upside might be better. So Crystal Palace was a super interesting game. One that ultimately, once it started breaking it down, wasn't too complicated, but it seems like a lot. It's big table sprawl. It's just everywhere. Big game. I really enjoyed it though. Really want to play it again. It can be mean with those action spaces and stuff, because if you put down 2 4s and I put in a 5, I get to go first because I paid the most, you know. So there's a little bit of that, but it was a really interesting game that scales well because there's different action spaces for different player counts and things like that. So anyway, Crystal Palace, super cool game by Capstone Games. Yeah, anyway, Crystal Palace, fun. You can play that and go right into World's Fair 1890. It's not the same World's Fair, but it'd be like a fun like sequel, you know. You could chain them together. Next up, I have a game called Trellis. This game from Breaking Games. I bought it at Target, actually. I saw it, and it looked pretty. Straight up, there's flowers. And you're building like little connective tiles to make little paths to bloom flowers. And you ultimately want to get your flowers out before anyone else. And this is a game that I saw when my dear sweet love's mom was visiting. I said, you know what? This is a 20-minute game. It's 2 to 4 players. Looks very light. As a game at Target, I would expect is going to aim to be very family friendly. And it was pretty enough and at a cheap enough cost. I said, you know what? We're going to get it. And I bought it, and I'm actually really happy I did. It's ultimately it's a game of Zen and Blossoms. It's a simple tile laying game where it doesn't get too caught up with like having to match everything, but it's advantageous to you. So you start off in the center tile, and you can kind of build out stuff, and you build these chains. You get to bloom a bunch of things and build like little chains. And it's just, it's super duper simple. Like it's literally kind of like lay a tile, bloom some stuff. Next person goes, you hope to bring like kind of 2 paths together to bloom out a bunch of different things. But you can kind of help your opponent by, if I were to put this here, for example, to bloom my own little pink, since I connected a chain for them, and this was Joy's, for example, Joy would then bloom automatically because it's continuing a chain of theirs. So every time you put a tile, you get to throw one of your flower petals down, but if you can kind of continue a chain, you can get kind of combos and stuff built up. So it's super interesting. You're trying to help yourself while not necessarily helping your friends, but you might just, again, need to do that to get your own gains. You're like, I'll give them 1 flower if it gets me 2, you know, things like that. It's kind of a little race to get your flower petals out. So that's Trellis. Cool little game, very affordable. Would recommend. This is not a Target type game. It's a big game called War of the Ring. That's just got some dust on it, fam. We don't play this enough. I'm intimidated by it. I'm not gonna lie to you. This game, I've never completed it. I've never played a full game of it. Because every time I sit down to, and granted I played early in my board game career, I'll bet you it wouldn't be quite such an undertaking now. But every time I played this game, we'd play and have set aside more time than the time before. And still, it wasn't long enough to finish it. Because it's an epic story. It's the story of Lord of the Rings. This is Lord of the Rings in the box. Straight up. You are the Shadow Realm versus the Free Folk and the Fellowship. So it's really interesting because it's a big dudes on a map game where you're kind of vying for control of Middle Earth. You know, if you're the Shadow Realm, you just want to wipe out the Free People. You just want to kill them all, get rid of them, get the ring back. If you're the Free Folks in the Fellowship, you want to destroy the ring. You want to get that ring up in Mount Doom, and pretty much that's it, because there's no like wiping out the Shadow Realm. So the thing that's really interesting that I really love about this is if you're the Free Folk, you have a finite amount of resources. You only have so many people. Eventually they're all dead and that's it. The Shadow Realm never depletes. If you kill off everybody, they still come back because they're just churning out the machine of war and mortar. There's like Sauron's scooping out orcs out of the dirt and stuff. Like and those weird scenes, man. They added so many of those weird scenes. It's this sort of race against time, really. It can turn into a siege game. Like you can hole up in Gondor and like sort of like just turtle and stuff, but you can't go forever. The Shadow Realm will defeat you. So you have to sneakily move the Fellowship around. And that's a cool thing is there's kind of a hidden movement element of where is the ring and who has the ring. And you're ultimately trying to kind of maneuver, survive, and just get crafty if you're the free folk. And if you're Sauron and co, you are just trying to be the unrelenting hammer of war and just crush your opponent. And there's beautiful art and really cool fan service with the cards. Like this is you know, the nerdy level accuracy with Lord of the Rings. Like this one sticks to a lot of like the mythos and the names, and there's a lot of like flavor text in the cards and stuff that are very specific to the books, which is really satisfying if you're super into it like me, and especially like Nick. You know, he can just sit down and geek out all day about like, oh, that's so cool. They mentioned this one thing, you know, on the cards. So it's super cool. We need to play this again. We absolutely, what's it advertised? 2 to 4. It only advertises, it says 2+ hours. Yeah, that's right. They put the plus on there wisely. It ain't no 2-hour game. It says 2 to 4, but really, you could play teams. That'd be kind of cool. But it's a 2-player game. It's just a heads up, good versus evil, as simple as you can make it. As Lord of the Rings is. It's a simple story of good versus evil. It's very black and white, of its time, and it's a beautiful tale. So anyway, that's our section of shelf. We had some big games that took up some space, so we don't have the most games on that shelf, but an interesting mix. We kind of assort by color-ish now, so that's how you end up with wild mixes, though. None of those games relate to the other one at all. Have you played any of the games that I talked about today on our list? If so, tell me which ones you like and why. If you don't like them, tell me why too. That's fine. We don't all have to have the same opinions on games. That's totally valid. What other sections of shelves would you like to see me do? We're going to save this one for last. That's a beautiful game right there. Thank you so much for joining me, folks. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, if you enjoyed this series. We love talking about our games. It's fun to do like these little quick rundowns of all the games we own and why do we own them? Why do we like them? Why do they live on the shelf, sometimes collecting dust? Like why do we keep it if it's just not getting played? Well, because War of the Ring is epic and we have painted minis and it's Lord of the Rings, you know, it's got to be there. It's got to be there. So we need to play it though. Anyway, folks, I hope you have a great weekend. If you're watching this today, and if you're not watching it today, weekend will be upcoming or has just passed. I hope it was great no matter what it was. Until next time, I'm Mike Murphy of the Brothers Murph. Thanks for joining me for another episode of What's on That Shelf. Have a good one.